spin on what you've been hearing for the last couple of hours or couple of days. It's not so much building demand, it's about making sure that what you're selling or marketing fits your marketing too. And make this really interactive. I'm gonna bribe you guys. The first 5 people with really good questions gets little Bluetooth headphones, but we'll get to that later. So just interrupt, raise your hand, do whatever, I'm informal. Just about me, I'm a recovering engineer. Those are Maxwell's equations. Somebody understands what about it. Got a business degree, somehow just said, screw the engineering thing. Worked in big companies, worked in startups and Series A, just sort of the whole gamut, but almost always in SaaS product marketing. And I like giving myself challenges. That was me last summer. I swam from Alcatraz Island to San Francisco. It was crazy but fun. I recommend it to anybody who likes swimming. And by the way, if anybody wants to know, there are no sharks in San Francisco Bay, even though people ask me that all the time. So I want to ask you guys this sort of presentation audience fit. How many of you are product marketers? Probably not a lot. Oh wow, a lot. Okay, so a bunch of you. How many think of yourselves as growth marketers? Just as many hands. Field marketers, demand gen people, way fewer than I thought. And how many of you are kind of agency-ish as well? You're supposed to be raising your hand. Okay, good. And anybody I didn't mention? Brand? Sales, okay. The reason I say that is not all of this is necessarily going to apply to all of you, but what my goal is you guys take away 1 or 2 frameworks, challenges that you can present to other people in your organization. How come we're not doing X, Y, or Z? And by the way, I'll put a QR code at the end of the deck if you want to take a picture of it. This deck is public, so you can download it that way. So you've probably dealt with all these things in the past, right? This is Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill, right? Whether your churn is high, retention's low, loyalty's low, things just don't seem to be clicking. And obviously, sometimes that stuff can be like it's a crap product, or the market for it is bad, or whatever. But generally, it comes down to you're probably marketing the wrong thing to the wrong people. And I'll talk about getting that balance in a minute. By the way, I'm going to go super fast. All the more reason you guys should interrupt me. I'm breaking all the rules. Way too many slides for 30 minutes. But these sometimes are symptoms of the fit's wrong, or at least a fit that you can improve. And I'll talk about what fit means in a minute. First of all, look at this. Just to get your mind off. Like, this looks like an awesome growth for a B2B company, right? Revenue's growing. This is not my example. Battery Ventures gave it. You put on top, hey, look, the upsell ARR is getting better also. I'm going to invest in this. But then you look at the truth is, shit, look at the churn. As a percentage of revenue, churn is increasing. This should, a VC would now look at this and go, I'm not investing. Right? There's something wrong with the product, the way you're marketing it, the way it's fitting with the market, there's something wrong. A lot of companies suffer from this. And ARR and churn obviously work against each other, and your job is to make the product as sticky and as best a fit as possible. So when I talk about product market fit, I think there's 2 things, right? It's tuning the product to meet the needs of the ideal customer profile. You heard about that in the previous session with Dr. Google earlier. And also adjusting the ideal customer profile to meet the product's intended value. So it's like a buy-sell kind of thing, right? You can adjust, you can tell your product managers adjust something, or add some new features, or we can tell your go-to-market people, it's not quite the right ICP. And we'll get into the details of that. But ultimately, you hit fit when engagement and sustainable growth are happening on their own. Right? It's not easy. And if you're a startup person, most of you probably aren't, but this goes for new products. Everything I say today goes for new product introductions, as well as startups. If you try to scale before you hit market fit, you're just going to waste money. You're going to push that rock uphill. So, the smart VCs will not give you a Series A until you can demonstrate product market fit. the smart enterprise CMOs will not fund scale for a new product until you show that you've got early traction with the early adopters. So what is product market fit? There's two definitions, some of these you may have seen. One is this Sean Ellis test. And it's a measure, by the way, I'm not going to talk about NPS. This is a test that basically says of your existing customers, if you took the product away, how disappointed would they be? And rule of thumb is about 40% or more say, shit, I'm really disappointed if this goes away. Dang, you know you've got a good product on your hand. You've got one to fit. The other way to look at it is retention. There's a cohort graph of different buying times. But you'll notice that the blue one on the bottom, something's going wrong with that product. It's selling to the wrong people, it's got the wrong features. People keep bailing and insurance on. But the light blue one up on top, it's leveling out at a pretty high level. That's what you want to look for. In the SaaS product, you want to look for retention. Another fantastic proxy for fit, right? People don't bail out on it after a week or after a year or something like that. It's going to vary from product to product. So those are my two favorite metrics. There are a lot of other early indicators we're going to talk about, but this is how I define market fit. And if you're not running those two, in my opinion, if you're not running those two tests with your customers, you're not actually measuring the right thing. NPS is very nebulous, by the way. And we just showed that ARR isn't always the best thing once you take into account fit. Yes?
How are you running those tests?
How do we run the tests? So you can do a couple of things. With the Sean Ellis test is pure survey.
Okay.
And retention, you should have instrumented your product and your sales and your CRM to measure this sort of stuff and do it by cohort.
Okay.
Yes?
Do you take away any emphasis on retention if you have a high percentage of accounts that are lost to their own business?
The question is, you take customers' businesses you close as part of.
Like our own, so we have a high percentage of the closed lost accounts.
I closed and lost, yeah.
Their business is also closed. So how do you factor that?
So, right, so basically what you're getting at is if the customer goes away to the account, the answer is no, because that's not your fault. Right? How do you take that into account? And automate it, it's pretty hard to do. So, actually, that's a reasonably decent question. Earbuds, Palladium. There you go. So, no offense, sir, but.
Yeah,
So this is what I see by buy, sell, market fit, and this is one thing I want guys to take away, is when you think about how the marketing is structured, inbound, outbound, product marketing, go-to-market, etc., I think it is simply buy, sell, right? What you're selling is your product, the infrastructure, the features, how you're offering it, what your outbound motion looks like, and you're adjusting that to meet the needs of the customers. On the opposite side, with other teams, and I use this picture a lot of times, that look at customer needs, market sensing, etc., and you're adjusting your targets. This team on the right does things like outbound and defines ICP. The team on the left works with product marketing, product management, etc. And all things are good when you meet the market with the right product, value, channel, price. And I like to think that there are teams, when you're structuring product marketing, my approach is kind of look at your structure this way. So you have teams responsible for fit and pricing and channel, but fundamentally, they're listening to the people on both sides. Any questions so far? Good. So there are kind of 7 conceptual approaches I've been using, whether it's at a startup, at Citrix and EMC back in the day, and in my own practice. They're not all going to apply to you, but I think they're all kind of useful models to take away. And if your company is young or early stage, your product is young or early stage, before you get to a beachhead segment, before your early adopters are dialed in, what are you doing? You're finding the ICP. I'm going to go down to each one of these, by the way. Find that ICP. You may not know it. You have to guess that first. Listen to them. Are you getting the right feedback from them? Is the PMF North Star, that retention rate, that Sean Ellis number, is it registering where you want it to or not? And if not, you keep iterating there until you hit it. That's your exit gate. So you should be telling your product managers, your product marketers, don't go to scale, don't try anything until you hit these. You know your customers inside and out. I'll talk about what that means. You know your ICP, and you've nailed the metric you want for PMF. Then you reach an exit gate, where you can begin to make a process around this. You can iterate the product to better fit that balance. And this is also recurring, recursive, right? You're measuring the right things. I'm going to drill on each one of these. And then finally, you get to go to growth. And now you're going to be sensing leading indicators about the market, about the product, et cetera. And you're going to be font scrolling. But you're instrumenting your product. What features are being used, which ones aren't, what's active use, what's monthly active use, all those sorts of things. So those 7 things. Question?
You have the detailed segment there. When you think of the opportunity to move to scale, how do you think of how large that beachhead segment actually needs to be?
How big is the beachhead segment need to be?
How scalable does it need to let you be?
Totally didn't bring enough headphones. There you go. So it doesn't need to be big. It needs to fit the definition of market fit appropriately, so that you know people are coming back. And by the way, a problem a lot of small companies fall into is they have early adopters. Like, oh, early adopters, this is fantastic. We want to be doing great. Early adopters are not your mainstream customers. They may not renew. So that's why you get the headphones. It doesn't have to be big. It just needs to be right. For a new product or a startup, it doesn't matter. So this is one that's near and dear to my heart. Identifying that ICP. I'll tell you a war story in a minute. Most people go, oh, my ICP. Well, company size, DUNS number, initially they're in, how many employees are there? You know, maybe it's in a vertical. That's nice. This sucks. And if you're still using this sort of stuff, don't. I worked for I don't mince words. So I worked for a company, startup that ultimately cratered. I didn't contribute to that. It was a company that made basically any Python programming language work and operate at the scale of a supercomputer. And we thought, hey, great, let's just sell to Python programmers on the left. Well, that didn't work. Garbage. Oh, right, maybe they need to be Python engineers, Python programmers who are data engineers, and try to sell them to them. Still not granular enough, right? They had to be using this technology called Spark. They had to be using data sets of a terabyte, and they needed to be doing data transformation. This took us a year to figure it out. But then we could dial that in, right, with our ABM work and all that, and target the right kind of companies. So every time you think of an ICP, click, click, click. Double click down on it. And then what you can do is take a look at your customer cohorts out of your CRM system and begin to group them by their retention rates and their lifetime values. What that particular market size is. Are they rated on G2 or something like that? And you can begin to look at, which ones are the really strong ones? By the way, I know you're taking pictures of this, but we've got a QR code. And use the data to figure out who those ideal customer profiles are. And if you're really good at it, looking at you, Jim, is then take this data and enrich it with external data. Find out more about those customers and make this chart more granular. Then, number 2, market sensing. Do not believe what your CTO says. Do not believe what your CEO says. Listen to the market. How do you describe your product? What categories is in G2 and CapGR? What does your competitor say their personas are? Listen to the market. Listen to the words that are used by those by external sources, research. Do not go by your gut. Next, the Sean Ellis test, right? Run cohorts on existing customer bases, and sometimes you're going to be selling in multiple segments. You'll find that if you do this right, it's going to take a couple of iterations. Some customer segments are like, hey, yeah, 60% would be upset. if your product went away. But over here, these people in the dotted line care less if your product went away. Don't bother marketing or selling those people anymore. Whatever that segment is, get rid of it. No hands. Okay, here. Number 4, how do you align your organization? I told you I'm going to go super fast. I'm a recovering engineer, so I think APIs in software. Right? An API is what one piece of software is going to give the other piece of software, and then what the handshake is back and forth. Do this with organizations, right? This is an example of product marketing and your relationship to, let's say, sales enablement, partner channel sales, and customer success. Have handshake agreements between these organizations. What are the gives and gets every week, every quarter, every forecasting episode, or whatever? So that people know I can expect to give enablement content to sales enablement, and I can expect to get market intelligence back from sales enablement. Document this stuff. Close the loop, again, like the guy from Google is. All those data sources go down to one big, cloud data. Make sure that they're coordinating on a regular basis, because you need to set up a rhythm when it comes time to scale. Yes?
This is a reference to the slide. So if you talked about how you're doing market segment and customer segments, but how do you share with leadership when maybe the segment that's the happiest is maybe not the most profitable, whereas the segment that's the least happy is less profitable? They're like, oh, just figure out
What happens when the highest retained segment is not the most profitable segment?
and so they want to focus more on the one that's the least happiest and push out.
Show them the data. Right? Because if what you think is the least profitable segment turns out to be the one that's the stickiest and loves you the most, scale. Perfect. Just scale. That's, it's like the salespeople who want to hunt the whales all the time, except it takes 18 months to get them. Go after the ones that have low customer acquisition costs, high retention. You'll win all the time.
Raise your price.
Oh, raise your price. Thank you. Such a good question. All right. No product managers. Any product managers in the audience? Probably not, but just trying. Is there any recovering product managers in the audience? I know one is, 2, okay. So when you get that feedback from a customer, right, what are the features they're using mostly? What are the ones they're not? CTO goes, we need these new features and they don't get adopted. This is time for iteration. So tell your product management, right, what feedback are you getting? Learn from it. You've got a new idea of a new feature that's going to be better, build it, prototype, test. Just like marketing, product management and engineering should be a set of experiments with feedback. If you don't do this, you're not a growth organization, you're not a learning organization. Why do I bring this up in this audience? Because as marketers, hopefully we have our ear to the ground, strange metaphor these days, but ear to the ground to listen to what the customers want, not what the engineers think is best. All right, there should be back and forth all the time. What it also means is, again, you're not a product manager, but you should know to ask the question of product management. How are you prioritizing your time, and how is engineering prioritizing its time? Generally, they're going to have a cadence for when you're going to release core product. They're going to have a cadence of when to do features and functions. They like to do spit and polish and finish, taking rough edges off of things. They like doing bug fixes, and then they get distracted by customer requests. And your job is to ask the question, what is this looking like? And is, for example, core product and features and functions in particular, following what the market wants and needs. Don't get hung up with customer requests. It will kill you, right? Because new customer's going to come in, oh my gosh, we're going to start selling to a big Fortune 500 company of your choice. We need to re-engineer this thing. All of a sudden it forks the code. We had a conversation about that already. So ask to see how they're prioritizing their engineering. Next, active users, stickiness. I'm going to guess you all know this, but track this like there's no tomorrow. Now, active use might be, depending on your product, it might be daily, it might be annual. But find that metric that's the most used for you. And when it starts to, when you find these curves are flattening, figure out why. Figuring out what feature is used more than any other feature. Question of that.
In your experience, when you find flattening, is it a training issue or is it an adoption issue?
Is flattening a training issue or adoption issue? You don't know. Which is to say, you need to start collecting data. So for example, if a feature you love, you think you love, isn't getting used, right? There'd be a lot of problems behind it because it could be a crap feature, could be one that nobody discovers, could be one that nobody's trained in. But you're not going to know that until you begin to measure this sort of stuff. I mean, if you use products like amplitude and mixed panel and all these other things that instrument your product, you can begin to figure out why certain features are getting used or not. I don't want to hurt anybody. But if I don't make it to you, somebody passes it along. Okay. I don't know, I think I'm breaking rules here. Okay. Anyway, and then last, actually second last, this notion of time to value. This is not a statistic that I see very often, but I've had a lot of conversations at this meeting about taking the friction out of early customers and customer adoption. I see heads nodding. Cool. And what this sort of says is, the red line, right? They try your product, it looks really cool, they activate it, and they're gone in a week, right? They get an aha moment somewhere early, but they fall off, right? Yellow curve, you're doing a little bit better, but after time, there's no retention. And obviously what we want is for them to get an aha moment early, right? They see value in the product, and then they get to be a second aha moment, basically. First one where they want to adopt it in the first place. An aha moment, we're like, I get the value. Now, this is kind of a deceptive time dimension on the bottom, because this might be a week or a month or whatever, however long it takes to do POCs, but this could be 5 minutes, right? If a customer doesn't get an aha moment on your website or in a PLG, product-led growth demo, in the first couple of minutes, developers, if you're signing developers, they'll give you about 20 or 30 minutes playing with the code to decide whether they like it or not. So you want to get customers to an aha moment where they go, I like it, I'm buying. Is that clear? I think I started off a little bit. Question, wait a minute.
How do you define an aha moment? Because there will be a lot of aha moments across the journey, depending on your product.
How do you define when the aha moment happens? I've no arm, but I'm getting you the last set of buds there. So it's when the last part of the journey, generally, before the customer pulls the trigger and buys or picks up the phone or whatever. I'm not going to use attribution, I don't like that word. But it's basically follow the customer journey. There's something they do, and after that, they show very, very clear signs of buying, or they actually go ahead and buy. It could be a feature they use, it could be a video they view, it could be some aspect of the product, and you can interview them also. Like, what caused you to buy the product? And they'll like, when I saw this feature, I knew it was for me. Right? If they discover that feature is deep in the product or deep in your website, fix it. Because again, this time dimension is generally a day or less, or 30 minutes or less, or sometimes 5 minutes. Okay. Finally, I've been talking about this a little bit, feature adoption. Back to that product management slide I showed you, is don't build features people don't use. And your job as marketers is to track this stuff. If product management isn't doing it, track this feature by feature if you can, dare, and find out which features are just hogwash, nobody uses it, except engineering thought it was cool, versus, well, these are the ones that cause the customers to come back and renew and expand and all that stuff. Yes, sir?
Quick question. You spoke about the aha moment. I've worked in a lot of startups that are clients, and especially when there are external factors that hit them. How do you deal with the uh-oh moment.
Tell me what the up moment is, Mark.
ChatGPT, right? They were selling a product, ChatGPT disrupted them, and they have to pivot. So how do you like had faith, now it's like, how do you do with that?
So the question, what happens when you're disrupted or the market moves? I'll answer it this way, which is that first, actually, let me see, if was this one, I'm going to put that slide again here. Here we go. It's not right on. Sorry, this looks like already showed slides, I have to talk to you again. If you remember that the two slides at the beginning, the two ends of the slide at the beginning, with what you're selling on one side, your marketing on the other, that is a continuous process. All right? So if the market changes, you should be tracking it. If the bottom drops out of the market with ChatGPT and your Slashdot or something like that, what do? It has to go back to sensing the market and finding out where it's going. There's no magic answer, unfortunately. But you should be tracking the potential disruptors all the time, right? And you may go back to your engineering, your product management, and say, this feature that is so cool. It's now a commodity with all of our competitors. We're not going to track it anymore. It's just a need to. We need to track something higher value. Sorry, not a great answer, but that happens. I'm racing against time here. An eye chart, but I'll tell you why I'm showing it, is if you think about the product stuff on the left and how you go to market, and market sensing on the right. This is my favorite way, and believe it or not, I've sampled almost all of these tools, right? This is the way I like to look at MarTech and tech stack. Your marketing operations people are cool. If you don't have them, get them. And one great way to organize what your tool portfolio should look like, what your MarTech tools portfolio should look like is, do you have tools on the left that help you plan, communicate, and track the product? Do you have tools that are tracking messaging and content communications? How well your outbound communication is working. You have tools on the right for sensing competition in the market side, and TAM, and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying you don't need all of this, right? But if you notice you don't have any in a particular area, you scratch your head and say, maybe there's a hole there. And in the middle, right, how well your go-to-market motions working, sales motions working, product usage working. This thing at the bottom, product usage. There's a bunch of different things down there, but these are gold. Right, so again, challenge your marketing ops people to see, do you want to have, this isn't, set in stone, you adapt this to your own company. But if you have a big hole in your MarTech stack in one of these areas, scratch your head and say, I'm not collecting the data that I need. Right. There's a bunch more, 2 more slides. I'm going to skip over them and just say the following. All these 7 steps that I showed, right? What's your ICP? How do you sense customers? How do you define a North Star? Building these structures, iterating with product management. What leading indicators are we going to use? How are we going to instrument? Depending on what stage your company is and what stage your product is, you don't need all of them all the time. If you're a startup, all you care about is getting clear on the first 3, maybe 4. If you're a mature company, you sure as heck better have all this stuff built out in excruciating detail. I'm not going to bother talking about what that detail is. But as a conceptual model, think about how mature you are for each one. I'll go back and I'll play with customer sensing, right? If you're a small company, just what are my customer segments? Just basic questions. Do I have a decent way of sensing those segments and sensing customer feedback? If I'm getting even better and more mature, I can advise you more. And if I'm really mature, maybe I have community. So there's different stages to each of these 7 steps as well. So again, all I want to do is leave you guys with thinking about maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of these applies to your company or your situation. This is the picture again. Just tell them what you're going to tell them, tell it to them, and show it to them again. So that's what I just did. But think about, are there 1 or 2 or 3 of these areas where if you were able to work cross boundaries inside the company, and ask the right questions. Could you impact some of this so that your product fits the market a little bit better, right? So that the market begins to pull your product, you're not that guy pushing the rock up the hill. That's it. Then take a picture of that, you get the PDF. Any other questions though, because we're right at time, but I want to make sure that any nagging questions get answered or at least we talk about. Yes?
Do you have any advice on at what stage in like the product review development process the PMM should be like actively involved?
At what stage should PMM get involved in? Immediately after you ship your 1.0. Right, so generally in a technology-led company, it's always engineering pushes stuff. Not always. There's some companies that start with a market problem that, unfortunately, most of the time, the engineers start with something, a little fun fart they have, right? That's just happening. But the minute you ship 1.0, or maybe even a little bit before, involve product marketing because they are the linchpin to holding all this stuff together. Right, working cross-boundary with demand, with product management, with content, etc. I'm biased. I'm a PMM, but once you hit Series A, once you ship a new product in a big company, there better be a PMM assigned. And by the way, they better be partnered with the appropriate product manager as well. Anything else? Nothing. Okay, and I remember the woman in the back you're waiting for your headphones. I got it. Thank you, and I hope it was useful.